Nietzsche did not announce the death of God as a celebration. He announced it like a crime scene. "We are living inside the warning," he wrote down. And by the end, you will understand why Nietzsche predicted every major crisis of the 21st century. Here's his exact words. And why the real reason almost nobody wants to face him is not religion, politics, or atheism. It is something much closer. Most people will hear this as philosophy. If you stay until the end, you may hear it as a mirror. In one sentence, Nietzsche saw the meaning crisis, identity collapse, political tribalism, mental exhaustion, and spiritual hunger of 2026 before any of it had a name. God is dead, now what? Here is the line everyone quotes, but almost nobody finishes. In The Gay Science, Nietzsche wrote, "God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him." That was not a smug atheist slogan. It was a diagnosis. He was saying that the old shared source of meaning in Western civilization had lost its power, but human beings were still walking around as if nothing had changed. Think about that in everyday terms. You remove the ceiling, then wonder why everyone feels exposed. You remove the compass, then wonder why everyone argues about direction. You remove the sacred, then wonder why ordinary life feels strangely thin. Nietzsche saw that modern people would not simply become calm, rational, free thinkers. Many would become anxious meaning seekers, trying to replace transcendence with productivity, ideology, status, therapy language, or constant stimulation. Meaning void. And here is the disturbing part. When people stop believing in a higher order, they do not stop worshipping. They usually start worshipping smaller things. But the next layer is darker, because Nietzsche believed this emptiness would not stay private for long. The crisis does not begin when people lose belief. It begins when they lose belief and pretend they are fine. Nietzsche called the coming condition nihilism, the feeling that the highest values have lost their value. You can see this everywhere without needing a philosophy degree. People wake up, check their phone, compare their life, chase goals they did not choose, and then wonder why success still feels hollow. The soul can be busy and still be starving. That is Nietzsche's point. A society can have comfort, information, entertainment, and options, yet still feel spiritually underfed. The World Health Organization and major public health institutions have tracked rising anxiety and depression concerns across the modern world, but Nietzsche would ask a deeper question. What if part of the pain is not only chemical, social, or economic, but existential? What if people are not just stressed, but unmoored? When the old altar is empty, we do not become free automatically. We become available. Available to noise, resentment, false certainty, and whoever offers meaning first. And once meaning becomes something people shop for, the loudest sellers gain terrifying power. This is where Nietzsche starts sounding less like a philosopher and more like someone reading tomorrow's headlines. When transcendence fades, people do not become neutral. They build replacement gods. Career becomes salvation. Politics becomes religion. Identity becomes scripture. Attention becomes proof of existence. The gym, the brand, the party, the movement, the algorithm, the tribe. Each can become a tiny altar. Status, tribe, identity, algorithm. And before you judge that, notice how human it is. We all want something to tell us who we are and why we matter. Nietzsche was not mocking that hunger. He was warning that if we do not choose our values consciously, we will inherit them from the crowd. Most people scroll past ideas like this because they feel too uncomfortable. Hit like and subscribe to keep examining the crisis beneath modern life. There is more underneath it, because the most dangerous replacement guards are not the obvious ones. They are the ones that make us feel morally pure while quietly making us cruel. And that is where Nietzsche's prophecy turns political. Here is the strange contradiction. The modern world claims to be more individualistic than ever, yet people seem terrified to think alone. Nietzsche saw this coming through what he called herd morality. Not because groups are always bad, but because groups can make people outsource conscience. If your side says it, it feels true. If the other side says it, it feels evil. Truth becomes team loyalty, wearing a mask. You can see this in politics, online arguments, culture wars, even personal development spaces. People do not only ask, is this accurate? They ask, does this protect my identity? Does this make my tribe look good? Does this punish the enemy? Nietzsche warned that resentment can dress itself up as virtue. That is a brutal sentence to sit with, because it means some of our most righteous emotions may not come from clarity, but from injury. Resentment can sound exactly like moral courage. And if that is true, then the crisis is not just out there in society. It is inside the way we react. But Nietzsche had an even more uncomfortable prediction. Without shared meaning, people would not only fight each other, they would begin fighting themselves. This one feels personal because it is. Nietzsche believed modern people would struggle to become themselves because the old identities would weaken before new inner strength developed. Family roles, religious roles, local communities, traditions, duties, even stable life paths. Many of these became less binding. That gave people freedom, yes, but freedom without formation can feel like standing in front of 1,000 mirrors and not knowing which reflection is real. When everything is possible, the self becomes a project with no blueprint. Today we call it identity crisis, burnout, self-optimization, reinvention, personal branding. Nietzsche might call it the burden of self-creation. Every bio, every profile, every aesthetic, every opinion becomes part of the performance. And the exhausting question underneath is, who am I when nobody is validating me? The consequence of ignoring this is subtle. You do not necessarily fall apart. You become fragmented. One self for work, one for friends, one online, one alone at night. And the next crisis begins when those fragments start demanding a philosophy powerful enough to hold them together. Now forget the dramatic image of collapse for a second. Nietzsche's scariest prediction was not chaos, it was comfort. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he described the last man, a person who wants safety, pleasure, convenience, and no great struggle. Not evil, not monstrous, just small. We have invented happiness, say the last men, and they blink. That line should make modern life feel a little colder. Endless entertainment, infinite scrolling, food delivered, opinions prepackaged, pain avoided, risk minimized, dreams quietly negotiated down until they fit inside a comfortable routine. Nietzsche was not saying comfort is bad. He was asking what happens when comfort becomes the highest value. Smallness. If the goal is only to feel good, then truth becomes optional, growth becomes annoying, and courage becomes unnecessary. This is why so many people feel restless even when life is easier than it was for their ancestors. The soul was not built only to consume. It was built to overcome. But once people forget that, they become vulnerable to something even stronger than comfort. The craving for power disguised as meaning. What I am about to say sounds harsh, but Nietzsche would probably say we are too polite about human motivation. He believed life expresses itself through the will to power, not just domination over others, but the drive to expand, shape, interpret, create, and overcome. When that drive is healthy, it becomes art, discipline, mastery, courage, leadership, self-respect. When it is sick, it becomes control, envy, humiliation, ideological obsession, and the need to make others smaller. Unlived power often returns as resentment. Look at online culture. People who feel powerless often search for someone to blame, shame, expose, or destroy. That does not mean every criticism is resentment. Sometimes criticism is necessary. But Nietzsche forces the question, am I pursuing truth or am I enjoying revenge? That question can ruin your excuses. The practical answer is not to become cold or selfish. It is to give your energy a worthy form. Build strength. Create something. Train attention. Take responsibility for what you can actually influence. Because if you do not transform your will, someone else will recruit it. And the recruitment machine of the 21st century is bigger than Nietzsche could have imagined. Nietzsche never saw a smartphone, but he understood the human weakness that makes smartphones so powerful. The algorithm does not need to invent our emptiness. It only needs to measure it, feed it, and keep it moving. Attention, outrage, meaning money. If Nietzsche warned about herd morality, the 21st century industrialized the herd. It turns belonging into metrics. It turns outrage into engagement. It turns identity into content. It turns loneliness into a business model. And the strangest part is that it feels personal. Your feed feels like you, but often it is just a mirror trained to keep you reacting. The modern herd fits inside your pocket. This is why personal development cannot just be about habits and morning routines. You also need value defense. You need to ask, what is this platform training me to desire? What kind of person am I becoming after an hour here? What emotion is being monetized through me? Ignore that, and your inner life becomes rented space. But the most shocking part is still ahead. Nietzsche gave the exact sentence that explains why morality itself becomes unstable after God dies. This is the peak of the whole warning. Nietzsche wrote, "When one gives up the Christian faith, one pulls the right to Christian morality out from under one's feet." Sit with that. He was not simply defending Christianity, and he was not simply attacking it. He was saying that many modern people want to keep compassion, equality, dignity, human rights, and moral seriousness, while removing the metaphysical foundation that once supported them. Maybe those values can be rebuilt on new foundations. But Nietzsche's challenge is brutal. Have we actually rebuilt them? Or are we living off inherited moral capital while pretending the bank is still full? The receipt. This resolves the open loop. The reason people avoid Nietzsche is not that he disproves religion or proves atheism. It is that he makes every side uncomfortable. Believers must ask whether their faith is alive or inherited. Non-believers must ask where their values truly come from. Activists must ask if justice has become resentment. Seekers must ask if freedom has become emptiness. Nietzsche did not give us comfort. He gave us a receipt. Do you think Nietzsche was a prophet or a poison? Comment prophet or poison and tell me why. Send this to anyone who needs to hear this today, because this conversation belongs in more minds than one. And after this, only one question remains. What do we do with the ruins? So what do we do with the ruins? Nietzsche's answer was not despair. It was responsibility. If the old structures no longer carry meaning for you, you cannot spend your life marking them from the rubble. You have to become the kind of person strong enough to create, embody, and live by values that cost you something. 1. Stop outsourcing meaning. 2. Test your inherited beliefs. 3. Build values through action. 4. Choose discipline over drift. This is where Nietzsche becomes practical. Ask yourself, what do I claim to value that my calendar does not prove? What belief do I defend because it is true? And what belief do I defend because it protects my ego? What pain am I avoiding that might actually grow me? The 21st century crisis is not only that God is dead. It is that many people are waiting for a new God to arrive in the form of a leader, ideology, algorithm, brand, or identity. Nietzsche's challenge is sharper. Stop waiting. Become worthy of the meaning you want. And that is why his warning still burns. It does not end with collapse. It ends with the demand to wake up. Nietzsche predicted the crisis because he understood that human beings cannot live on facts alone. We need meaning. We need hierarchy of value. We need something that tells us what suffering is for. When that disappears, the human heart does not become empty. It becomes contested territory. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. So the question is not simply whether Nietzsche was right. The question is whether you are brave enough to examine what has been ruling you. Comfort, resentment, fear, approval, the algorithm, or a value you chose with your whole life. Choose your highest value. If you made it this far, comment last MAN awakened to prove you stayed with the uncomfortable truth. The truth is stranger than anything you could make up.